Alright guys, this is Nicole. I'm going to go over your test from last week. The first step is number 1 here. Which of the following fractions would you convert to repeating decimal with a value greater than 1? So you can cross out 2 of these because both of these, the denominator is bigger than the numerator. So both of these are less than 1. Both of these are less than 1. And we want ones that are greater than 1. And then if you look at the denominator of both of these, 1/2, we know that all of our fractions that end in 1/2 are either not a fraction or end in 0.5. So there's no way for it to be repeating. So we can cross out that one, and it has to be 14/9. The next one would be Callie has completed a project for her English class. Express the value as a decimal. Then state if the decimal is terminating or repeating. So when we are putting a fraction into a decimal, the denominator goes on the outside, our numerator goes on the inside, and we divide. How many times can 12 go into 5? It can't. So then we can add our decimal point here and add another 0. Bring your decimal place up. 12 goes into 50 4 times. 4 times 12 is 48. Then you subtract, you get 2. You may say, well, I can't put 12 into 2. No, you can't, but you can add another 0 and bring it down. 12 goes into 2 1 time. 1 times 12 is 12. Then you get 8. 12 goes in, you have to add another 0, bring it down. 12 goes into 86 times, and you're going to get 72. 72 minus is going to be 8, and then if you bring it down, you're going to get 80 again, and 6 again. So that 6 is going to be repeating. So expressing it as a decimal is 0.416 repeating. And then because it is that makes it a repeating decimal. It did say then state. So if you just pick terminating and repeating, it was not. It did say express it as a decimal and then state if it was terminating or repeating. 2.9. Anytime you have repeating fractions, anytime you have a repeating decimal and you're trying to change it into a fraction, you have, if it's 1 decimal place, it's over 9. If it's 2 decimal places, it's over 99. So in this case, this is just 0.2. It would be 2/9. Which positive integer means a whole number that is positive is closest to the value of 230. So the square root of 225 is 15. So 15 would be the closest positive integer. Now we have our squares. 9 squared is 81. With it in these parentheses right here, with it inside these parentheses right here, what we are saying is that we want to do -9 times -9. Those two negatives times each other make a positive, so this one would be 81. Without the parentheses, we are saying 9, the negative form of 9 squared, which would be -81. So the square root of 169 is 13. It is not 13 squared. 13 squared is equal to 169. So that would, writing it like 169, the square root of 169 is equal to 13 squared is wrong, because that's saying the square root of 169 is equal to 169, when in fact it is equal to just 13. So I did not mark you off if you did that, but you need to know for the future, because I'm sure your future teachers will, because it means something different. Alrighty. So here it says the point below represents which of the following. So we have something that's just slightly higher than 6 here. So it means it's slightly higher than 6. So you can look at your square root of, or 6 squared would be 36. So the square root of 36 is 6. The 7 squared is 49. So the square root of 49 would be represented here on the number line. So we can cross off pretty easily D and C because they are so far from 49. I had a lot of people picking B because it's really close to 6, but it's actually just under 6. It would be over here in the yellow. So B is not the correct answer. The only answer that is slightly above 6 would be that 38. B would not be your answer. Then we have over here, which of the following has the greatest value? So some of the things we can do is we can do 3.14 is pi. So we know it's 3 plus 4, so, or 3 plus 1, which would equal 4.14. We have 4.2 repeating. We have 9 over 2, which is equal to 4.5. You can divide that, or you can just know that your 0.5 is your decimals for 2. So then you can look at this. The square root of 24 is really, really close to the square root of 25, which is our perfect square, which would be equal to 5. So you could say that this square root is more than halfway, because your 0.5 would be halfway. So this would be bigger than 0.5. Our next one is our descending order. The best way to find our descending order is to get close to the fractions that are really close to these. So you have 170 is going to be right around 13.1, because the square root of 16, or 169 is 13. We did that up above. And then you have 5 times the square root of 8. You could say that the square root of 8 is really close to 9. So you could estimate that as just under 3. And 5 times 3 is 15. So I would write 15 there. And then you have 40 over 3. Which again, when you're dividing your decimal, when you're making a fraction into a decimal, your numerator goes on your inside. Your denominator goes on the outside. 3 goes into 4 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. You subtract, then you bring down the 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. You subtract, you bring down a 1, and you'll quickly realize that you'll just keep getting 3. So it's 13.3 repeating. And then it's really easy to write them. So now we will write them in descending order. Descending order means greatest to least, not least greatest. I did give half credit if you wrote it from least to greatest, but descending means biggest to smallest or greatest to least. And in that case, it would be 5 times the square root of 8, and then 14.025, then 40 over 3, then the square root of 170. Our next problem, number 10, is 9 squared plus 3 squared equals blank. Most of you did this very well. 9 squared is 81, plus 3 squared is 9. 81 plus 9 is 90. use the graphic organizer to answer the questions 11 and 12. The first says, which of the following could be included in section D? Section D is your natural numbers. So that is your counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. So the square root of 99 would actually be in E. It's irrational. It's not a perfect square. Negative 20 is an integer. 9.2 would be a rational number because it is a decimal that ends. So 60 over 15 can actually be divided into 4. So that's what makes it a natural number. Is 60 over 15 is 60 divided by 15, which is equal to 4. Then the next one is which cannot be included in B. B is your integers. So it's all your whole numbers and their opposites or their negative numbers. So negative 42 over 6 would be 7. This is definitely a thing because, or this is definitely irrational because 72 is not a perfect square. So that would belong in E over here in irrational. So that definitely wouldn't belong in B, but let's double check these ones. 2 times the square root of 100 is 2 times 10. So that would be 20. So that's a whole number, and so is 8. So your answer would be A. Scrolling down. Alrighty, so our next question here says, for questions 13 and 14, fill in the first blank of each sentence with either rational or irrational. So we need to make sure that we are reading all the directions because I had lots of people that just filled in what these equal here and not irrational or rational. Then in the second blank with your justification, so your reason why they were rational or irrational. So the square root of 135 is irrational, and that is because it is not a perfect square. It is not a perfect square. It would have to be written as a perfect square or a fraction, or it could be written as a fraction to be a rational number. In this case, 50 over 2 does in fact equal 25, so it is rational because it's a whole number. You could have said because it's a fraction, it can be written as a fraction. I accepted all of those answers. The next one here is our final question. It is William estimated that the square root of 140 by placing the point on a number line at the right, which is true about his estimate. So he placed it right in the middle. So you have 11, the square root, or 11 squared is 121. So 11 actually represents the value of the square root of 121. And 12 represents the value of the square root of 144. So his estimate is correct because it should be halfway between. Well, if we look at 140, it is actually only 4 away from 12. It is a lot further away. It's 19 away from 121. So it wouldn't be directly halfway, and it wouldn't be closer than 11. His estimate is incorrect because it would be slightly closer to 12 than 11. And it wouldn't be slightly above 12 because 140 is less than 144. So it wouldn't be that one either. So your correct answer here is C.